welcome everybody to another live recording of the Business Travel 360 Linking the Travel Industry podcast, where we discuss travel industry news you're talking about on LinkedIn. My name is Rian and I'm one of your hosts today. I'm a co-founder at Agentivity, where we do some very clever things with the booking data flowing through a TMC. So if that sounds of interest, please get in touch and I'll love to have a conversation with you about that. As usual, I'm joined by Ash and Anne to help me discuss our list of stories with you. So over to you, Anne.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Anne. I'm an independent consultant with Lyft and happy to help you with anything regarding distribution, primarily retailing. Over to you, Ash.
Thank you, Anne. Hi, everyone. My name is Ash. I'm the host of a weekly business travel podcast called What's Up in Business Travel, where we give you only the important updates in under 15 minutes. Additionally, I'm the Vice President of Client Success at Traxo, and this is Linking the Travel Industry.
So for those new to the event, welcome. Last week was already week 43, which is a bit of a scary thing. We also like to get your input and your comments. So if any of the stories we talk about here today is of interest or you have a further comment, please share that comment and we'll bring that on screen. So week 43 for me started with the shocking video, a short clip video that was taken on board an Air China flight that encountered a burning lithium battery in an overhead baggage compartment inside the aircraft, and it was forced to divert. I picked that post up by somebody called Pet Hornfeld, who called it in his post the biggest threat to aviation today, and I totally agree. We mentioned it briefly on last week's event. I also did some further reading, and I found some statistics there on our website from the UL Standards and Engagement Authority that talked about some recent statistics around this, that there are now 2 flights per week on average that's experiencing what is referred to as a thermal runaway incident. And that was in 2024. Absolutely shocking scenes. Ash, I know last week when we briefly spoke about this, you mentioned that if it was you on that aircraft and you saw that overhead compartment like that, you're not sure whether you would have kept your pose, right?
I think I would have passed out. This situation is getting worse every week, Rian and Anne. This is something that we've been talking about on this show for quite a while now. For many, this is new news. Different airlines have started to deploy different ideas on what their plan is to handle this. Unfortunately, here in the US, the only airline that has any policy still remains Southwest, as I've mentioned before. So that's a little bit aggravating. The Asian airlines tend to have taken a stance on this at a much higher rate than any other area of the world. I agree with you completely that there needs to be an all-out ban. The battery manufacturers cannot be trusted. I think that this is something that we need to educate the public on and just outright ban.
Yeah, we have a question there from Mozilisi asking if it was a laptop. We're not sure. I think it was a portable charger is the thinking here. And any comments on your side?
Equally shocked. Remember, guys, I was telling you about one of my flights when I had this guy sitting next to me who just insisted on charging. And I alerted the crew and said, I'm not happy with this, just ignored. I've been on a flight where the wiring has caught on fire and had to go through an emergency landing. One of the scariest moments of my life, I would say. So yes, I agree with Ash there that I would not have been very comfortable witnessing this.
The other thing also that makes this situation even worse is the fact that the aircrafts are getting older. Maintenance is getting worse. We have a major safety issue in the industry right now. My opinion is that if we can ban liquids, if we can ban all sorts of other things, we got to take off our shoes and go through TSA, then I'm sure that the banning of a lithium battery is not going to be the end of travel. I agree, Rian, there needs to be some stance on this. And really, what should happen is that the airline should just outright ban it.
I mean, Mark Lennon's comment there about the fact that if it's happening this frequently, it's a miracle it hasn't happened in the whole. That is exactly the point of that post by Peter. He was saying it's going to happen. And then you can't reach it, control it. And then you have a real problem. Very worrying statistics. The next story was very interesting to read about. The story it was about an American Airlines flight. I believe it was an American Eagles flight. There was an issue with the cabin intercom and the pilots couldn't hear. There was just some noise and they were under the impression that there was a cockpit intrusion happening. Somebody was trying to come in from the other side. And so they followed procedure and they went back to the originating airport. And I did see a video online of the police showing up on the plane going, where's the guy? And they're like, no, there is no guy. There is no person to arrest. Now, I mean, on the one hand, you could view this as being silly, but on the other hand, they're following protocol. So,
They were following protocol. They did everything by the book. Fully agree. That's what they have to do. It could have been a real case scenario. It's probably very frightening for the people on board.
So, Ash, what did you make of it?
For me, I think that this was a job well done by the pilots. They followed all the rules, as I mentioned, which is great. This kind of points towards the anxiety at which pilots are operating in. I worry about that quite a bit. I think our pilots are, of course, overworked. There has been talk in the US market about double doors.
I've seen a photo of that. It looks really weird to see the next door there. It makes perfect sense.
I mean, it's better than the carts, right? They have those carts that they pull up in front. I think the double dooring is the way to go.
The Australian-based Rex Airlines went into voluntary administration at the time. There seems to be, this was a post I saw about Rex Airlines where they might have a new lifeline in the form of an acquisition by an American-based company called Air T Incorporated. I don't know anything about Air T. I wasn't aware that since July 2024, this was still an option for Rex, but either way, it's possibly good news for them, right?
Of course, it's good news, but it also makes me wonder so much about these regional airlines. They struggle all over. There must be some sort of compromise or way for regional airlines to do better because they need these regional airlines, absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Okay, before we go on, let me just turn to the audience and say thank you so much for giving us your time on a Monday. We really appreciate that. And we really appreciate the comments as well. And if it's relating to the story we're talking about, we'll certainly bring that on screen. Another purpose of linking the travel industry is the clue is in the name. So we want to link as many of us as possible. So if you can comment and tell us where you're listening from, we'll bring that comment on screen. And so maybe you'll get a few more connection requests. But it's a good way of doing that. So do let us know where you're listening from and we'll get that comment on screen. So I'll get back to the stories. We've got a few more coming up. So next story, very interesting, this one. A British Airways flight, I believe it was a Dreamliner, was about to take off from London to Kuala Lumpur, and it got cancelled, the flight, because a service delivery ground vehicle became lodged beneath the aircraft. And it was a small vehicle, one of those panel vans, that obviously he just drove too close and he got lodged in there. I believe the damage wasn't too much, but of course it was enough to warrant a quick investigation for them to see if there was any more damage done, and they had to cancel the flight. Just a horrible sequence of events there for very unlucky passengers. We have talked about this before. Qatar Airways is very focused on expansion in Africa and investment in African airports and African airlines. This is not new news. This was announced some time ago, but it's now official that Qatar Airways and Kenya Airways have taken off this partnership, and they've announced a code share between the two airlines on 19 different routes. So this is great for your ability to fly to more destinations with a QR code or with a KQ code. And I know you're not a massive fan of code shares, but this is still good news, right?
It's very interesting to see Qatar here because they clearly are positioning themselves in Africa with a very large footprint. And I wonder, we talked about it often, that one of the problems in connecting various cities or countries in Africa is that you really fly via the Middle East, which is crazy. Flying 5 hours and then back 4 hours or something is insane. Will they actually expand their network to direct flights?
And then another story that caught my eye from last week was a post by Bennett Jordan, where he was reminding us why it is a very to post images of your boarding pass and other, identifying information on social media. This is after a passenger, I believe it was with Qantas, that they've posted enough information about their boarding pass online for somebody to get access to their reservation. I think they posted it on TikTok, and they managed to cancel their booking with that information. Now, we don't always say good things about Qantas, I have to say, but in this case, they did owe up, and they waived the refund or the rebooking fee or something good for the passenger. I'm not entirely sure, but they didn't just say, no, not a problem. They took some ownership and helped the passenger reduce their rebooking costs. But absolute nightmare to obviously show up at the gate and see your flight has been cancelled. But I thought it was worth sharing that story because it is important. Right, Ash? You're a fan of boarding passes. You don't post photos of them, though.
A few things came to my mind when I read the story. People got to lay off social media before your trip. The desire to tell people where you're going, where you're staying, it's a little bit too much. Anybody follows Risk 101, you would know that those things are bad things to do. So here's where the airlines, I think, are to blame. If you go to Qantas's website, and all I need is your confirmation number and your last name. Nothing more than that. And that seems to be the standard across all the airlines. Two things, last name and booking numbers. Even if you send me a boarding pass, I can decipher where the book record locator is, as most people can. I have seen some airlines, American Airlines, for example, deploy an additional field, and that is the date of birth field. Date of birth can actually help this process quite a bit because date of birth is not displayed on a boarding pass.
There are some airlines who do two-factor authentication as well. They will ask you to confirm a message. They've just texted your phone if you want to retrieve the booking. That sort of thing is fairly easy to do these days. It's not expensive either, but, another step.
The reason why that's not taken off, Rian, is because a lot of travel agents actually book trips for their travelers on airline websites.
And what did you make of this?
Yeah, I was going to say that two-factor identification is a good thing, isn't it? There should be something confirming that it's you.
Something which has caught my eye a lot is that on the bag tags where, sometimes you get to an airport and somebody has offloaded some baggage either for a group or has been delayed and it's just standing there. Anybody can go look at those bag tags. Perfectly printed on that bag tag is the PNR and a surname. There you go.
Yeah, it's not good, is it?
So guys, those were the stories on my list from week 43. Do we have any other extra stories? And do you have an extra story?
I do, because I've noticed that the whole discussion about the PNR is going away. And I noticed a post by Harviland. He did a post here saying, are you prepared for when the PNR is going away? Well, I thought that commentary here was very interesting to read. Yes, I do believe, and you need to discuss these topics. As you know, I think that travel sellers should also be able to sell whatever content and move to, let's say, an order environment, an orchestrated environment. It's really exaggerated, the urgency. So that was a post I wanted to raise, and that's interesting.
Over to you, Ash.
So if you remember, I had mentioned in the past that Lyft is expanding into the Europe market very aggressively. Lyft just acquired a company in Scotland called TBR Global Chauffeuring for $110 million US. So pretty significant purchase there. TBR headquartered in Scotland, and they have offices across Europe, Middle East, Asia, and North America as well, operating in 3,000 cities. So this is an attempt for Lyft to gain market share in the EU market. And we've seen them do this quite a bit in other areas. Ground transportation in the EU market by Lyft is gaining some steam. The other story I want to mention is ASTA, the American Society of Travel Advisors here in the North American market. They just released a tool for travel agents to be able to get control of hotel commissions that are not being paid to them. So the CEO of ASTA, Zane Kirby is his name, he just got sick and tired and he said, we're going to develop a tool, and this tool is going to enable our travel agents to be able to file delays in terms of which hotels are not paying out on time. So anything over 45 days is subject to this. And if that hotel happens to be an ASTA member, then ASTA plans to address it at a organizational level on behalf of the travel agent. So this is quite good. And one thing we know is that commissions from hotels is always slow, always delayed. The agent has to put a lot of effort in for a simple $5, $10 commission. And in many cases, they just give up because it's not worth the headache and the effort. So this is a big move for ASTA to make. And I congratulate them in doing this because I think it really, really helps those organizations that just don't have the manpower follow up and to be able to address this. So addressing it at the hotel level is great.
Brilliant. Yeah, that does sound great. Comment from Alex. Alex, thank you for listening. She's fed up with people posting their boarding passes online. And yes, it is just a sad state of affairs. So Lizzie, he's confirming about Lyft in South Africa. Thank you. I wasn't going insane there. And Mark is just reminding us that Lyft also acquired Free Now in Europe. So great to have those comments and participation. Thank you so much, everybody. So guys, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you so much for a great event. We're news from week 43. We do this weekly, as Ash will remind us, but thank you to the audience for your participation. Fantastic. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks, everyone. Over to you, Ash.
Thank you all for joining today's live recording of Linking the Travel Industry. We record this podcast live every week on Monday, and we ask that you share this event with others that you know. Chances are high that if you enjoyed today's session, those that you know will as well. If you ever miss a show because of time zone or availability, the podcast is available on businesstravel360.com. This is Linking the Travel Industry, signing off.